The Arctic outpost, a constellation of prefabricated domes huddled against the vast, indifferent white, was a beacon of human ingenuity in a world that sought to reclaim its secrets. Dr. Aris Thorne, head of Project Chronos, stared at the monitor, his breath fogging the air inside his hermetically sealed suit. Below him, encased in a shimmering block of ancient ice, was a face. Not merely a skull, nor fossilized bone, but a face. Wide, strong, undeniably human, yet profoundly, chillingly alien. A Neanderthal. Perfectly preserved, a ghost from 40,000 years past, unearthed from the permafrost's iron grip. "My God," whispered Dr. Lena Petrova, the expedition's lead paleogeneticist, her voice a thin tremor through the comms. It's breathtaking." The discovery had been a fluke, a seismic survey revealing an anomalous thermal signature deep beneath the ice sheet. What they'd found was a subterranean ice cavern, a relic of a forgotten epoch, and within it, the silent sentinel, a male Neanderthal, frozen mid-stride, his fur-lined garment still clinging to his powerful frame, a flint spear clutched in a remarkably intact hand. The sheer completeness of the specimen defied belief, promising a treasure trove of genetic, physiological, and anthropological data. Days blurred into weeks of intense, exhilarating work. Dr. Ben Carter, the climatologist, set up his array of atmospheric sensors, meticulously charting the microclimates within the cavern and around the thawing ice block. Dr. Mei Lin, the team's resident neuroscientist, prepared her specialized scanners, eager to probe the ancient brain. Aris, overseeing it all, felt a thrill he hadn't experienced since his doctoral days. This wasn't just a discovery, it was a conversation across millennia. Then, the anomalies began. Subtly at first. Carter reported unusual localized pressure drops, followed by sudden, hyperlocalized blizzards that swirled around the main excavation dome before dissipating as quickly as they appeared. Just the Arctic being the Arctic, he'd grumbled, adjusting his instruments. Permafrost disturbance, probably. But the blizzards grew more frequent, more intense, yet remained strangely confined. One morning, Aris watched from the observation deck as a column of snow and ice corkscrewed violently a mere 100 meters from their main habitat, leaving the rest of the landscape eerily still. The aurora borealis, usually a distant, ethereal curtain, began to pulse with an aggressive, almost territorial glow directly above their outpost, its colors shifting with an unnatural speed. Inside the domes, a different kind of shift was occurring. Dr. Carter, usually jovial, grew withdrawn, his brow perpetually furrowed. He spent hours staring out at the white expanse, his gaze distant, almost predatory. He started communicating in grunts and clipped sentences, his movements becoming more deliberate, heavier. Dr. Lin, meanwhile, developed an unsettling hyperfocus. Her senses seemed heightened. She'd flinch at sounds no one else heard, her eyes darting around the lab as if tracking unseen prey. She began experimenting with fire, not for warmth, but for observation, mesmerizing herself with the dancing flames, occasionally emitting low, guttural sounds, more like purrs or growls than human speech. Her delicate fingers, once so precise with microtools, now seemed to crave the tactile sensation of raw earth, of stone. Lena Petrova, the geneticist, underwent the most striking physical transformation. Her movements became fluid, powerful. She'd lift heavy equipment with ease, her stamina seemingly limitless. Her eyes, once framed by meticulous spectacles, now held a fierce, primal glint. She developed an uncanny ability to navigate the labyrinthine ice tunnels without instruments, almost instinctively sensing the subtle shifts in pressure and temperature. She started hoarding food, not out of hunger, but with a fierce, possessive protectiveness that bordered on aggression. Aris watched them, a creeping dread coiling in his gut. He tried to rationalize it: Arctic isolation, cabin fever, stress. But the changes were too specific, too uniform in their direction. He caught himself, too, feeling the pull. A sudden, irrational urge to smash a malfunctioning console, to assert dominance over a flickering light. He felt a heightened awareness of his own body, a deep, resonant ache in his bones, a craving for raw meat, for the biting cold against his skin. His mind, once a citadel of logic, was becoming a battleground. He tried to run diagnostics, to find a viral agent, a prion, anything. He took blood samples, tissue biopsies, from himself, surreptitiously from his colleagues. The results were maddeningly normal. No pathogens, no genetic mutations. Yet, the changes persisted, deepened. One evening, Aris found Carter meticulously sharpening a piece of scavenged metal against a rock, his movements practiced, almost ritualistic. The air around him crackled with an unspoken intensity. "Ben," Aris began, his voice strained. Carter merely grunted, his eyes fixed on the makeshift blade. "Snow coming. Need, ready." The weather wasn't just localized anymore, it felt responsive. When tensions rose within the dome, a blizzard would howl outside, mirroring their agitation. When one of them expressed a need for something, food, warmth, a quiet place, the environment would subtly shift, a patch of clear sky, a sudden gust of wind carrying the scent of prey, though there was no prey for miles. It was as if the outpost, and the world immediately around it, was becoming an extension of their collective, primal consciousness. Aris returned to the Neanderthal, still encased in its ice tomb, but now subtly different. The ice around it seemed to shimmer with an internal light, a faint, almost imperceptible hum emanating from the ancient body. He ran a specialized bioelectrical scanner over the specimen. The readings were off the charts, a complex, low-frequency bio-electromagnetic field, pulsing rhythmically, extending outwards, subtly distorting the readings of other instruments in the lab. He remembered Lena's initial genetic analysis. The Neanderthal's DNA was remarkably intact, but riddled with unusually active epigenetic markers, switches that controlled gene expression without altering the underlying code. Could this field be activating something? Not a virus, not a direct genetic change, but an echo. He felt a profound shift within himself. The urge to rationalize, to document, to communicate, was fading. Replaced by a clear, visceral understanding of his surroundings, of the subtle currents of air, the shifting ice, the silent language of his colleagues' movements. He saw Lynn meticulously arranging glowing embers, not for science, but for comfort, for a primal fascination. He saw Lena, muscles rippling under her parka, dragging a heavy equipment crate, her eyes scanning the horizon for unseen threats. He saw Carter, a silent sentinel, guarding the entrance, his improvised spear now sharp and ready. They weren't regressing. They were adapting. To a world that their ancestors had known intimately. To a world that, through some inexplicable resonance, was calling them back. The Neanderthal wasn't just a discovery, it was a tuning fork, struck after millennia, vibrating with an ancient frequency that resonated with dormant pathways within the human psyche. Aris felt his own thought streamline, shedding the complexities of modern thought for a direct, intuitive understanding. The hum from the Neanderthal grew louder in his mind, a silent song of earth and ice and survival. He no longer saw his colleagues as changed, he saw them as right. They were connected. To each other, to the land, to the ancient spirit stirring within the permafrost. He picked up a heavy wrench, its cold metal a comforting weight in his hand. He felt the subtle vibrations of the ice beneath his feet, heard the distant howl of the wind, no longer an alien sound, but a voice. The localized blizzard outside the dome intensified, a swirling vortex of white, a protective shield. He felt a profound sense of belonging, of power. The outpost wasn't a scientific station anymore. It was a hearth, a cave, a sanctuary. And they were its guardians. His last coherent thought, before the analytical mind fully dissolved into the primal, was not of escape, but of presence. Of the silent, powerful echo that had finally found its voice. The truth revealed. The mystery in the Arctic outpost is driven by a phenomenon we can call epigenetic environmental resonance. It is a speculative concept built upon real scientific principles. 1. Epigenetics*. This is the study of heritable changes in gene expression that do not involve changes to the underlying DNA sequence. Think of DNA as the computer hardware, and epigenetics as the software that tells the hardware what to do. Environmental factors, diet, stress, exposure to toxins, can switch genes on or off, and these epigenetic tags can sometimes be passed down through generations. 2. Bio-electromagnetism *. All living organisms generate subtle electromagnetic fields. These fields are involved in cellular communication, neural activity, and even developmental processes. In the story, the perfectly preserved Neanderthal, when thawed, doesn't release a virus or directly alter DNA. Instead, its intact cellular structure, frozen for millennia, still retains an extremely complex and potent epigenetic profile. As it thaws, this ancient biological material releases a unique, low-frequency bioelectromagnetic field. This field, amplified and modulated by the unique mineral composition of the surrounding permafrost and the subterranean ice cavern, creates a localized resonance chamber. Humans, particularly in the isolated, high-stress environment of the Arctic, are highly susceptible to this resonance. The field doesn't infect, it acts as an epigenetic trigger. It subtly interacts with the researcher's own dormant epigenetic markers, specifically those associated with ancient survival instincts, sensory acuity, territoriality, and environmental attunement, traits that would have been highly developed in Neanderthals and are still present, though suppressed, in modern humans. It essentially rewires their brain chemistry and physical responses, activating these primal genetic expressions. The localized weather patterns are a psychosomatic effect of this heightened primal connection. As the researchers' minds shed the constraints of modern cognition and become more intimately attuned to their environment, their collective, subconscious will, amplified by the pervasive bioelectromagnetic field, begins to subtly influence local atmospheric conditions. This is a speculative form of proto-telekinetic environmental manipulation, rooted in a reawakened, deep-seated connection to the planet that goes beyond conscious thought, much like how collective animal behavior can sometimes influence localized weather on a microscale. Therefore, it is not a dormant virus, nor a simple genetic echo, but a primal awakening through epigenetic environmental resonance, causing a deep, instinctual shift in the researchers that fundamentally reconnects them with an ancient, powerful way of being.